Bonhoeffer is a new faith-based biopic from Bonhoeffer Studios, but is it worth your time? Welcome Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below. Have you seen Bonhoeffer? Is it good? Is it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already to join in the film culture community where we talk about a lot of cinema as a whole. And getting right into the synopsis. In a world amidst the struggles of two world wars, Bonhoeffer is played to his wits and tested about his faith in order to decide where his morality stands in preaching the word and being able to stand up for his faith when breaking some rules. And taking it into the positives, there are so many great things about the values to this film. The dialogue is well adequately written to the intrigue of the story, what is all going on. It knows its basis, and it's a biopic that doesn't necessarily feel like a documentary, so some things can be dramatized to the sense of being entertaining to the regard of understanding what takes its form to life. And of course, you don't necessarily know everything that went on within the life, so it's a representative of different stages that really goes about certain things from childhood to adulthood and upon his death, to which it manages to capture this sense of life, this sacrifice, going through different things, learning the sense of truth in God and everything that's going about that, and being able to stand up for himself, figure out his own morality, and fight back against certain churches that are not for the true faith that is based on the Word of God, and how all that comes about with also a great performance from the guy playing Bonhoeffer is just something that really stands out, has good camera work here and there for what you're really asking out of the film as a whole. There's nothing particularly spectacular about the filmmaking, certain things, but this story certainly can intrigue history buffs that certainly know about Bonhoeffer to begin with. Going into mixed elements, there are certain things you need to know about the film before going into it, or things that may throw you off guard if you already seen it, but just the general gist of it, it goes through different flashbacks here and there. There's sequences where it starts with his adult life in a prison, but then goes back in time and sort of jumps between different years. And at face value, when you first see that scene introduced, it has a timestamp of the year that is taking place, whether all the way back during World War I, or closer on to World War II, or the in-between years, but it's not chronological to the sense of what you're asking out of typical flashbacks. That can disturb or not disturb people, depending on what you're particularly into. And also for me, I wasn't totally familiar about Bonhoeffer as a person. This sort of got me the general gist of what all was going on, but it doesn't fully feel like I got the image down flat of what all Bonhoeffer was representing. Obviously, I know the basics, certain things that are going about along the way, but there are certain things that feel a little convoluted, maybe partially because it was dialogue heavy, which also you will need to know about. There's not a ton of action, even though it takes place within a war era, and there's certain drama scenes here and there. It's not necessarily something that has high stakes in the regard of something that's really quick. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes, which feels deserving for a time of a biopic that covers a lot of periods of his life. But there's also multiple topics that it's managing to cover that may not always have something that's for everyone, especially those not familiar with him to begin with. It may be brushing over things a little bit too much to the standard of what you may ask for the general aspects of the film, what you're learning about Bonhoeffer, who he's acquainted with, how that all flows about, and what his main plan is to begin with. So that just really goes about the vibes of what you may need to expect when diving into Bonhoeffer. Another thing to note, of course, is this is a Christian-based film. It's not shoving or preaching a message right in your face like some other Christian films can do in an unbelievable manner. Like I said, I trust Angel Studios and what they've been doing as of recently. This one sort of falls a little flat in some areas to the standard of how it manages to tackle and talk about God without feeling over preachy in the sense of what you're all asking for it, being still down to earth. But there's certain ideas where it may tackle it at certain times, or as someone that may or may not know about Bonhoeffer, who he is, what he represented, you may not be for what his ideas are, whether you're a Christian or not. And so that may throw off your watching and viewing experience, just not vibing with the general aspects of what all you're learning about the film, learning about him. It could turn you off just because you're not particularly into who that person represented at that time. Which takes me right into negatives, to which overall there's so many flashbacks throughout this film, and me being someone that was not familiar with Bonhoeffer to begin with, maybe it's just a personal experience like that that threw off my aspect and intrigue to the film to begin with. But that's just my personal experience I have to speak on. Is it goes back and forth. Yes, it has those timestamps at the beginning, but it throws it off and doesn't show the timestamp going on for them. You can still understand and be able to determine the sequence, whether his acquaintances and friends he's with, or the setting that he's actually in, this location that he is all is set into, to which you can set apart which timeline happened in a different period, but not necessarily being able to match everything chronologically, tell it out as a history book now that I've seen it, and still being able to be misinformed by certain pieces of information, even if I get the general sense of where things were going with the dialogue. Which, on that note, there's some issues with the sound, and to which some aspect, my theater is typically really good with sound. It's not Dolby Atmos, Beyond Sound, or anything along the lines of that. There are certain whisper scenes here and there, which, yes, sometimes it can be the aspect of the theater that you don't always get to hear the whisper scene, but there's quite a few here and there throughout the movie, and so that's something that they would have accounted for. Raise up the volume just a little bit more, which, yes, you can fix those things when at home, but that's not something you're meant to be trying to account for when taking the film in its final product, which also leads on to something you can't fix unless there's something that changes upon different theaters, what they go about with that sound. Is there's certain aspects to the music to where, yes, it can have an impact with what the music is doing, how it feels old age in its own respect, but at the same time, there's certain moments where the music rises about to the volume of the dialogue, making it somewhat hard and tricky to pay attention to what all is going said. And even if you are able to make out what is said, you're already so sucked into making an effort to enjoy the film, making an effort to understand what they're saying, that sort of separates the dialogue and speaking point to where, yes, a film can make you think in a positive manner. Thinking about the film can leave an impact. That's a good thing that a film can do in order to understand it, but in the aspect of not being able to separate the words from the music and certain things that go about along the lines of that, just making that extra effort can turn you off a little bit, as it did with my personal experience as well. And also, there's certain parts of the film that, while the dialogue and certain aspects feel like they're really good, it ultimately didn't invest me quite as much as I would have liked to. I'm a big fan of these different history movies, big fan of Angel Studios. There's certain things that may provide all the right ingredients that could be right for me, but just didn't really land all the ingredients in the right place. So that's just my personal review for Bonhoeffer, which I have to rate as simply 5 out of 10. Let me know in the comments below, have you seen Bonhoeffer? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Or is it somewhere right in the middle? Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already to join in the film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.